My sister framed me for stealing money while I covered her debt, so I exposed her lies and left my family speechless and broken. I'm a 26-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, I was the dependable one in my family, the fixer, the backup plan, the emotional sponge everyone leaned on when things went wrong. While my friends were allowed to mess up and be young, I was praised for being mature, which really just meant quiet, compliant, and useful. My parents liked to say I was the strong one, the reliable one, the one who didn't need much. At the time, I thought that was a compliment. My older sister, on the other hand, was always the golden child. She was special, sensitive, creative. When she succeeded, the house felt lighter, louder, full of celebration. When she failed, it was everyone else's job to soften the landing. If something broke, if money went missing, if emotions ran high, my parents' eyes always found me first. "You understand, right?" my mom would say, her voice already exhausted. "You're better at handling these things," my dad would add, like it was a badge of honor. I learned early that love in my family came with conditions. I was valued when I was useful, invisible when I wasn't. I skipped things I wanted because someone else needed help. I stayed calm so no one else had to be uncomfortable. Over time, it became normal to swallow frustration and call it responsibility. Meanwhile, my sister lived fast and loud. Shopping sprees she couldn't afford. Bills she ignored until the last notice arrived. Risky decisions brushed off as phases. I worked steady hours, saved what I could, and planned like the future mattered. When I asked why the rules were so different, my parents always had the same answer. "She's more fragile," my mom would say. "She needs extra support," my dad insisted. I told myself that being the reliable one meant being trusted. I believed my family would never turn that trust against me. Sitting here now, I know how naive that was, because the very role they trained me for was about to be used to destroy me. I didn't find out about my sister's debt all at once. It came in pieces, like cracks spreading quietly through a wall you assume is solid. One night, she showed up at my place unannounced, eyes red, hands shaking so badly she spilled water on my kitchen counter. The room smelled faintly like burnt coffee, the kind you forget about when your mind is elsewhere. She sat down hard and said, "I really messed up," before she even looked at me. At first, it was just one credit card. Then another. Then a personal loan she'd taken out to get back on her feet. The numbers didn't sound real when she said them out loud, like Monopoly money. She kept whispering, "Please don't tell Mom and Dad," over and over, as if saying it enough times would make it true. "They'll panic," she said, wiping her face. "They won't understand. You know how they are." And I did know. She cried about collection calls, about interest piling up, about not sleeping. She said she felt like a failure, like she was drowning. Something in my chest twisted when she said that, because drowning was a feeling I recognized. I told myself this was what family did, to step in quietly so no one else had to get hurt. I agreed to help her pay it off in secret. Not all at once, but enough to keep the wolves away. I rearranged my budget, canceled plans I'd been saving for, and started sending monthly payments she promised she'd pay me back as soon as things stabilized. She hugged me tightly and said, "I don't know what I'd do without you," like it was gratitude, not a transaction. At home, my parents noticed I was stretched thin. "You're so responsible," my dad said proudly. "I wish your sister was more like you," my mom added. I smiled and nodded, carrying a secret that grew heavier every month. I thought I was protecting my family. I didn't realize I was teaching my sister something far more dangerous, that I would always clean up after her, no matter the cost. And soon, she would test just how far that went. The first time my parents asked me to sit down, I didn't think much of it. My dad's voice was too calm, too controlled, the way it got when he'd already made up his mind about something. The living room felt colder than usual, even though the heater was running. My mom sat stiffly on the couch, her hands folded in her lap like she was bracing for bad news. "There's some money missing," my dad said, not looking at me at first. "From our emergency fund." I blinked, waiting for the rest of the sentence. When it didn't come, a strange pressure filled my chest. I asked what he meant, and that's when my mom finally looked at me, her expression tight with disappointment instead of confusion. She said they'd been tracking their savings and noticed withdrawals they couldn't explain. My name came up because I handled finances sometimes and knew where things were kept. My sister sat across from me, silent. She stared at the carpet, twisting her fingers together, playing the role of someone deeply upset but trying to stay out of it. Every few seconds, she glanced at me like she wanted to say something but couldn't. "I would never take your money," I said, my voice coming out sharper than I expected. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I started explaining, listing reasons, timelines, anything that proved how ridiculous the accusation was. My dad frowned. "You're getting defensive," he said. My mom sighed. "We just want the truth." Then my sister finally spoke, softly. "I don't think he meant to," she said, not looking at me. "He's been under a lot of stress." The room went quiet. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. In that moment, I realized they weren't asking me if I did it. They were watching to see how guilty I looked. And as I sat there, trying to defend myself, I could feel the story shifting, slowly, quietly, into one where I was already the villain. After that meeting, something in the house changed. It wasn't loud or obvious, it was subtle, like a draft you can't quite trace but feel every time you sit still. My parents stopped asking me casual questions. Every conversation felt like it had an edge, like they were measuring my tone, my expressions, my pauses. I could feel their eyes on me when I walked through the room, counting, calculating. My sister stepped into a new role almost overnight. She became the concerned peacemaker, the one trying to keep the family together. She'd pull me aside and whisper, "Just stay calm, okay? You know how mom gets," like she was protecting me. Then she'd sit with my parents and speak in that careful, gentle voice she used when she wanted to sound reasonable. "He's been really overwhelmed lately," she'd say. "I'm worried about him." Every lie was wrapped in concern, and that made it worse. If she'd accused me outright, maybe I could have fought back. But this was different. This was death by implication. My parents started reminding me about honesty, about responsibility, about how disappointed they'd be if I broke their trust. No one ever said the word thief out loud, but it hovered in the air like a smell you couldn't get rid of. I tried explaining myself again, calmly this time. I talked about my work schedule, my finances, how none of it added up. My dad shook his head and said, "You're talking in circles." My mom asked why I was making such a big deal if I had nothing to hide. Every attempt to defend myself seemed to confirm their doubts. The worst part was watching my sister sit there, nodding along, occasionally biting her lip like she was holding back tears. She never defended me. Not once. And slowly, painfully, I realized she didn't have to. She'd already planted the seed. All she had to do now was let it grow. At night, lying in my room, I replayed every conversation, every look, every word. I kept asking myself how this could be happening so easily. That's when a terrifying thought crept in. This wasn't panic or confusion. This was strategy. And if I was right, then whatever was coming next was going to be much worse. I couldn't sleep anymore. My mind kept looping through the same question over and over: how do I prove something I didn't do? So I did what I'd always done when things felt out of control. I gathered evidence. Bank statements. Pay stubs. Transfer histories. I printed everything out, spread it across my desk like I was building a case against my own life. The paper smelled like fresh ink and desperation. There was nothing there. No unexplained cash. No withdrawals that lined up. If anything, the numbers showed the opposite: my savings shrinking, my expenses climbing. Proof, I thought. Clear, undeniable proof. I asked my parents to sit down again. My hands were shaking as I laid the papers out on the dining table, smoothing them flat like that would somehow make them easier to accept. "Just look," I said. "Please. This shows I couldn't have taken anything." My dad flipped through the pages slowly, his jaw tight. My mom barely glanced at them before sighing. "This doesn't prove anything," she said. "It proves I didn't steal from you," I shot back, my voice cracking despite my effort to stay calm. My sister leaned forward, folding her hands like she was genuinely trying to help. Paper trails can be misleading, she said gently. People move money around all the time without realizing it. I stared at her, stunned. She met my eyes for just a second, then looked away, like she couldn't bear the tension. My dad nodded. "You're very smart," he said to me. "You know how to make things look right on paper." That was the moment something inside me broke. Logic didn't matter. Facts didn't matter. The story they wanted was already written, and my evidence didn't fit it. My mom asked why I was being so insistent if I had nothing to hide. My dad said my attitude was concerning. I gathered the papers back into a neat stack, my chest tight, ears ringing. I realized then that this wasn't about money anymore. It was about who they were willing to believe. And as I looked at my sister sitting there, calm and untouched, I felt a sick certainty settle in. The truth wasn't enough. And if that was the case, I was in far deeper trouble than I'd imagined. I stopped trying to convince anyone after that. Something in me shut down, like a circuit breaker flipping to protect the rest of the system. Outwardly, I went quiet. I answered questions with short sentences. I kept my head down. But inside, my mind was racing nonstop. If logic didn't matter to them, then I needed something stronger than explanations. I needed truth they couldn't ignore. The discovery didn't come from some dramatic confrontation. It came late one night, alone, with my laptop humming softly on the desk and the house finally asleep. I was reviewing my own bank transfers again, not because I thought I'd find anything new, but because I couldn't stop. That's when I noticed a familiar account number buried in my transaction history, one I recognized because I'd sent money to it before. My sister's. My stomach tightened. I followed the trail slowly, carefully, afraid of what I might find. There it was. A transfer from my parents' account into an intermediary account, then moved again, and finally landing in the same place I'd been helping her pay off for months. The dates lined up perfectly with the missing money. Perfectly. My hands went cold. My ears started ringing. I scrolled back further, checking timestamps, amounts, routing details. This wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. She'd taken the money herself, then let them believe I did it while still accepting my help in secret. Worse, she'd used their money to cover the very debt I'd been sacrificing for. I confronted her the next morning in the kitchen while our parents were out. Sunlight poured through the window, ordinary and cruel. "I know it was you," I said quietly. Her face went blank for half a second before she scoffed. "You're paranoid." I showed her the screenshots. Her tone changed instantly. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. "You really want to blow this up," she said. "After everything they already think about you?" That's when it hit me. She wasn't scared. She was confident. She knew exactly who they'd believe. And in that moment, I realized the accusation wasn't an accident or panic, it was a calculated move. I wasn't just covering her debt anymore. I was covering her crime. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone blowing in the dark, rereading the screenshots until the numbers blurred together. Part of me still believed that if I showed my parents this, everything would finally snap into place. The truth was ugly, but it was clear. And surely, I thought, parents would choose reality over denial. The next evening, I asked them to talk. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I didn't bring everything, just enough. I laid the screenshots on the coffee table, my hands trembling as I pointed to the dates and amounts. "This is where the money went," I said. To her. My mom frowned, leaning closer. My dad's face darkened as he studied the screen. For a few seconds, the room was silent except for the ticking clock on the wall. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. Then my sister started crying. She covered her face, shoulders shaking. "I can't believe you'd do this," she sobbed. "You've always hated me." "That's not true," I said, my voice breaking. "I've been protecting you." My dad stood up abruptly. "Enough," he snapped. This is exactly what I was afraid of. He turned to me, eyes full of anger and disappointment. You're twisting things to get yourself out of trouble. My mom shook her head slowly. Why would your sister steal from us? She asked. That doesn't make sense. I stared at them, stunned. Because she was in debt, I said. Debt I've been helping her pay. My sister looked up then, tears streaming. He's lying, she said softly. He's trying to drag me down with him. The words hit harder than any accusation before. In that moment, I saw it clearly, they weren't weighing evidence. They were choosing comfort. Believing her meant everything stayed the same. Believing me meant admitting they'd failed us both. My dad told me to drop it. My mom said I needed to stop obsessing. I stood there, holding proof that meant nothing, and felt something cold settle in my chest. They had made their choice. And it wasn't me. After that night, I stopped being a son in my parents' eyes and became a liability. They didn't say it outright, but everything changed. My dad changed the passwords on shared accounts. My mom started locking her bedroom door. If I entered a room, conversations stopped. The house felt hostile in a quiet, suffocating way, like I was intruding just by existing. One evening, my mom cornered me in the kitchen. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. We need to set boundaries, she said, arms crossed. Until this is resolved. Resolved how? I asked. She looked away. Until you're honest. Honest. The word felt like a slap. My sister walked around like a wounded angel. Relatives started calling less. When they did, their voices were different, careful, distant. Someone had clearly been talking. I overheard my aunt once whisper, "He's always been a bit off," and I locked myself in the bathroom so no one would hear me break down. I stopped eating properly. Sleep came in fragments. I replayed every choice I'd ever made, wondering how I ended up here isolated, distrusted, and branded a thief in the one place that was supposed to be safe. There were moments I questioned my own memory, my own sanity. What if I missed something? What if this really was my fault somehow? That thought terrified me more than anything else. One night, my dad told me plainly that if I kept causing problems, I'd need to find somewhere else to stay. I nodded, numb. I'd never felt so disposable. Rock bottom isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's realizing no one is coming to save you. And sitting alone in my room that night, staring at the wall, I knew one thing with absolute clarity: if I didn't protect myself now, I never would. I stopped arguing. I stopped defending myself. Outwardly, I became exactly what they wanted: quiet, compliant, invisible. Inside, something hardened. If my family believed I was capable of stealing, then I had nothing left to lose by telling the truth properly. I started documenting everything. Late nights, low light, my phone screen the only glow in the room. I went back months, timestamps, transaction IDs, screenshots of old messages. I found texts where my sister thanked me for covering things. Voice notes where she joked about how relieved she was our parents still trusted her. Each discovery made my stomach churn, but it also sharpened my focus. She got careless. She assumed she'd already won. One afternoon, she bragged on the phone in the next room, laughing about how she'd handled the situation. I recorded it, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Another time, she admitted casually that if I just stayed quiet, none of this would have happened. I saved everything. I didn't feel powerful. I felt exhausted. But for the first time in weeks, I felt grounded. This wasn't about convincing anyone anymore. It was about reclaiming my reality. I planned carefully. I knew if I came in emotional, they'd dismiss me again. So I waited. I let the tension simmer. I let my parents believe they'd broken me. When I finally asked for a family meeting, my sister smiled like she'd already won. "Sure," she said. "Let's clear the air." As I watched her walk into the living room that night, confident and relaxed, I felt something strange settle over me: not fear, not anger. Certainty. Everyone sat in the living room like it was any other serious conversation. My dad's arms were crossed. My mom looked tired. My sister leaned back on the couch, calm, almost bored. The air felt heavy, like it was waiting for something to break. "I just want this to be over," my mom said. "So say what you need to say." I nodded. My voice didn't shake. "Okay." I connected my phone to the TV. The first screenshot appeared: dates, amounts, account numbers. I explained each one slowly, carefully, like I was narrating facts in a courtroom. No accusations. Just timelines. My dad leaned forward. My mom frowned. Then I played the audio. My sister's voice filled the room, laughing. Talking about how she handled it. About how relieved she was that they believed her. The color drained from her face. "That's taken out of context," she said quickly, sitting up. I played another clip. Silence swallowed the room. My mom covered her mouth. My dad stood up, pacing. "Is this true?" he demanded. My sister started crying, real tears this time. She said she was stressed. That she panicked. That she didn't think it would go this far. She reached for my mom, begging. I sat there, watching years of lies collapse in real time. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty. Vindication didn't erase what they'd already done. As my parents argued behind me and my sister sobbed, I realized something terrifying and freeing at the same time. Exposing the truth was only the beginning. What came next would decide whether I stayed or walked away forever. The room was still shaking from the recordings when I spoke again. My voice sounded distant to my own ears, like it was coming from someone else. "There's more," I said. My sister snapped her head toward me. "Why are you doing this?" she cried, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Haven't you heard us enough?" That word "us" lit something cold inside my chest. I pulled up the bank transfers I'd never shown my parents before. Month after month of payments from my account to hers. Notes attached. Dates lining up with the debt she'd sworn she was handling. I explained how long I'd been quietly paying to keep collectors away, how I'd rearranged my life so she wouldn't have to face consequences. My mom's face went pale as she realized the money I couldn't explain was money I'd already given away. Then I showed the messages. "Thank you for saving me again. I don't know what I'd do without you." And finally, the one that made my dad sit down hard. "They'll never believe you over me." My sister screamed that I was betraying her. That family didn't do this to each other. My mom started crying, repeating my name over and over like she was trying to pull me back into place. My dad asked why I hadn't told them sooner. I laughed. It came out sharp and broken. I tried. The air felt thick, suffocating. Apologies started coming fast, clumsy, panicked, desperate. My parents said they'd made mistakes, that they were sorry, that we could fix this. My sister begged me not to ruin her life. I looked around that room, the same room where I'd been judged, doubted, and quietly erased, and realized something terrifying. They wanted the truth now because it hurt them. And I wasn't sure forgiveness was even possible anymore. The apologies didn't stop after that night. They followed me for days, echoing through the house like background noise I couldn't shut off. My mom kept knocking on my door, asking if we could talk. My dad tried being calm, then firm, then emotional. My sister avoided me entirely, except for one moment when she whispered, "You didn't have to destroy everything." That sentence settled it. I packed quietly. Not in a dramatic rush, just steady and methodical, the way I'd learned to do everything. Each folded shirt felt like peeling myself out of a life that never really fit. The house smelled the same: coffee, dust, familiarity, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like evidence. The morning I left, my parents stood in the hallway, eyes red, voices shaking. "We can go to therapy," my mom said. "We'll make it right," my dad promised. "Please don't do this," she begged. I looked at them and realized they were finally afraid of losing me, not because they loved me unconditionally, but because the role I played was gone. The fixer. The shield. The one who absorbed the damage so no one else had to. I already did this, I said quietly. 4 years. My sister stayed in her room. I didn't say goodbye to her. When I stepped outside, the air felt different, lighter, colder, real. I sat in my car for a long time before starting it, hands resting on the wheel, heart racing. I expected guilt. I expected regret. What I felt instead was relief. I didn't win anything. I didn't get revenge in the way people imagine. What I got was my life back. Distance. Peace. The freedom to stop proving my innocence to people who never wanted the truth. And as I drove away, I understood something clearly for the first time. Walking away wasn't abandonment. It was survival.